Ladies and gents, I am joined by the absolutely amazing, that I have finally got a chance to meet him now multiple times, Mr. Rogerbrown. Hello, Roger.
Hello, guys. Thanks for
Hello.
having me here. I'm excited for this talk.
Yeah, so the whole purpose, guys, is we're making a top 5 video coming up, so we wanted to ask the guys who are involved in some of the bosses that I have chosen for this list for a quick talk about the guild at the time, what led to it, how they felt about it. But at the back of this, after doing a couple of these interviews now, they've turned into nice little chats. So I don't know what Roger's got for us. The boss I've chosen, Roger, for you is one I'm so thankful that you kind of agreed with me on, because nobody cares about this boss, like, at all. Like, for the community,
Yeah,
no one gives a toss.
it's one of those things that you have to live it to understand it. Yeah, you have to experience it yourself. Otherwise, you don't get it.
Exactly. On stream, I'm often asked, like, what was your favorite boss of all time? And I'm like, well, I love the Kale Fast fight in TBC, and the Blast Furnace, which is the boss we're talking about today. Everyone goes, Blast Furnace. I'm like, dude, that fight is awesome. It's so good. And it was watching... The reason I chose this is I remember, and this is how I kind of came up with the list, is I remember watching the Method World First of Blast Furnace and seeing the energy that you had the furnace at when you transitioned into Phase 2 and thinking, what in the actual fuck did those guys do to make that possible? Which is extremely nerdy, but if you've ever done the fight, it's a big deal, because we did not know how it was even possible to get there. But before we get to that fight then, Roger, you've been in the world first scene now for nearly a decade, or a decade.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I was there, as I do recount, the day that name joined the guild, and I thought, what a dumb fucking name. I saw Roger Brown has joined the guild, and I was like, what in the fuck? Who is this guy? How did you come to join Method, dude?
Yeah, it would have been a normal name, because some people actually do this if it was my real name. But it has nothing to do with my real name, actually.
It has
So
nothing to do with it. I thought you were English, because it's an English name. So I think I said to you, it's like, oh, where in England do you live? And you went, Greece. And I'm like, okay. So that doesn't work.
Close enough. No, but so yeah, it's pretty interesting. So back in the day, so I played World of Warcraft since the beginning, pretty much. Actually, the way I started was I was playing Dota in internet cafes. Back then, it was a thing. Still
Greek.
is, actually. You know what? It still is in Greece, actually. But now instead of World of Warcraft and stuff, you usually see Fortnite. But
well, this is the thing, dude. My TBC guild, which was like World 40th, was run by Greeks. They had 8 Greek officers, all in the same web cafe. It was the first time I'd ever encountered it in my life. They were like all next to each other. And I was like, why are you guys playing in net cafes? Why don't you have your own PC? It's like, it's just not what we do in Greece.
Yeah, it's the social aspect of it. Plus, I mean, internet was horrendous back then in general. But yeah, like, people would reserve their specific computers, and they were like, this is my computer. Make sure it's open when I arrive at 5 p.m. for my raid. So I was playing Dota like every normal person back then, and then slowly but steadily, the people around me, including all of my friends, would start playing World of Warcraft, and I was like, what are you doing? Why would you...
Were you like me? Did it look like it was just a kid's game? Because that's what I saw.
So in my head, I mean, back then I was like, what, 14 or something? And I was like, so you're telling me that not only do I have to buy this game, I have to pay. It was 28 euros back then for 2 months. You went to buy the CD key from the retailer to have the subscription, and I'll do all of that so that I can see my character flying for 15 minutes on a griffin, not doing anything. I was like,
I've never heard it described that way. That is awesome.
Yeah,
I could just picture you looking over at your friend and going, "You're paying for this?" What?
Yeah, exactly. I would have started and finished a Dota game, and he would still be on that griffin, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" But then, at some point, I was like, you know what? Okay, let's do it. Let's just try it out, see what's up. All of my friends were playing it, and then I made a hunter, and I just started casually playing with my friends. And slowly but steadily, I reached the top guild of my server, and then it was going great. Actually, I was playing Alliance, and the forward side had a way better guild, so I was always like, damn it, I'm like hard capped here. And then at some point,
always competitive then?
Yeah, so not at the very start. I think
in gaming in general.
Yeah, I mean, generally that's the sentiment I had. I think I got a lot more competitive once I was out of high school. So when I was done with high school and I took like an 8 month break as well for my studies, when I came back, I played a bit with my, back then still the best guild on the server, and it was a lot of my friends, as you said, a lot of Greeks. And then I reached the Ulduar. And then I was like, okay, like I just can't anymore. Like we couldn't progress fast enough, and I felt like the mistakes were just so bad from the players. And I was like, well, I'm not having fun, so I'm either gonna just go to a way better guild, or I'll probably quit. So I went
what
to
was your world progression at the time?
It was like less than 1,000 rank. Yeah, like we
So
were
you
really
jumped quite high.
Yeah, I literally went on I don't know what website it was back then. I was like, what is the best alliance guild? Because faction change wasn't a thing, and I'm like, I'm not changing my character. And it was like, I think Method back then had just killed Algalon, world second. And I was like, okay, I'm applying there. And I made like a super application, like, yeah, I mean, I really want to push, and you put all of those little things like, why should we want you? And I just made it as good as possible.
Was it the weird one that had like, you had to keep refreshing the page every now and again, every few days, because they would it was like a forum post, but you couldn't see the replies unless they decided to show you the replies?
I mean, I honestly... No, wait, what are you talking about? The applications?
Yeah, because I had to apply...
Yeah.
I was like, say, I joined maybe a couple of months before you. And the way they did it back then was like you put your reply forward, and then it went onto like a page that was like a forum post with your app in it. But what I found out later is that was just a forum post, but the replies of people discussing you were all hidden unless they had decided to show you the replies.
Okay, so okay. I mean, we're diversing a bit, but it's fine. So
Yeah.
I applied. It was Ulduar, and they accepted me. And yeah, exactly. It was always on the forum. That was the website, and all the replies were hidden, though, right? So then I and sometimes what they did was when you got promoted, they gave you the rank of member, and they forgot to like hide all the replies.
That's how I remember.
Yeah,
Because my thread was full of people. It was fucking crazy.
And I went there and was like, he deceived. Like normal Greek, I guess, lol.
Yeah,
Stuff like
exactly.
That all the time. I was like, okay, well, it's good to know what people thought about me.
Yeah, I had one that was... I know this is totally off topic, but there was one in there saying, "Oh, we did TOC 5-man, and he feared a mob that was hitting me, even though I could have survived." I'm like, "What is this? Really?"
The craziest thing was, I did have internet issues, right, and I tried to fix them, and then I at some point I just relogged because I had just updated add-ons, my add-ons, which back then you had to do manually one by one, by the way, and then I just restarted my game. And I said, guys, I'm restarting my game. But this officer from the team back then, he didn't hear that. And he always didn't like Greeks because of bad connection. And he actually went on my application, on my trial thread, and said he was updating add-ons, but he obviously deceived because there was no new update on any add-on today. And I was like, what?
Is it bad that I know who that officer is?
Wait, did you know?
I had a war with that guy. Yeah, I do know who that is.
Wait, okay.
I can tell you my story. I'm not going to drop his name.
Sure.
Because who knows who's going to listen to this. But we're in Ulduar. I was a warlock, right? Because Method wanted me to be a warlock. So I get this whisper from that officer saying, "Summon me," in all caps. And I was like, yeah, I've made the stone, because I was on a trial, so as soon as anybody left the raid or whatever, or there was a prospect of someone coming in, I was like, I'll make the summon stone, and then Sparko was like, what the fuck are you doing, kiss ass? But I made the stone, and I was like, yeah, we're not sure who you're removing yet, so I can't summon you because everybody's still in here. Just summon me. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, there's no spot for you yet. And he's like, summon me, you trial. That's what he called me, and I went, well... Why don't you go fuck yourself? He went, I'm an officer. And I went, well, that's just great, isn't it? And I just left him there. And then he was such a prick to me after that. And I was like, I don't give a shit, dude.
It was different times. Yeah, different times.
It was a really different guild. Very different guild. Yeah.
And one last thing, actually, now that we're going down memory lane,
Of course,
I
sure.
remember the way that back then Davey was the class leader of hunters, and the way he
Yeah.
was going to decide between which hunter trial is going to make it was he made a list of like all the bosses in Ulduar and was like, okay, whoever. It was a point system, so whoever on XT does the most damage on the heart gets a point. Whoever does the most damage on those ads on like other boss, gets a point. And I literally was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna do a single point of damage on the boss until that heart pops out. And
Every
and
proc
that's what
in the
it is.
world.
Yeah, and
Every
I mean,
trinket.
and it worked for him as well because that was basically all the extra jobs that no one wanted to do. So it worked in the favor of the raid because I was doing the proper thing, but my total damage was abysmal. Right? I was just and I won. So then I got promoted, and the other guy, well, I don't remember even his name. Sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
true, because he was
that's-
my. It was I can't remember how they did it because we were down to so many few raids. But he was my class officer as well, and he played mage. And nobody gave me any feedback because there was literally 2 warlocks in the guild. There was a Russian guy and me. And I'd been there for 2 months and nobody had said anything to me. And I was asking around. I was like, Protec, what's happening? Like, because Protec was generally somebody you'd hang around and you could talk to him, right? So I was chilling with Protec and I'm like, what's happening? He's like, I don't know. So I was like, ask your class leader. It's like, I don't have a class leader. There's 2 warlocks. He was like, oh, Difey's your guy. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I asked him and he went, I just checked your file thread, your trial thread. Nobody's really bitching about you, so I think you're good. And that was it. That was the only feedback I had after 2 months. It was like, I think you're all right because no one's calling you a prick. I'm like, oh, okay.
that's it. That's the bar that was back then.
That's the bar. Like I was like, are we going for world first here? Is this the process? I was like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It worked. But yeah, it was good times. It was good.
Yeah.
So anyway, you joined Method and you were fine from the get go, right? Obviously.
Okay. Now that you mention it, one quick story. Since you're talking about like the hard boss as well, this actually fits quite nicely. So I joined, as I said, after Algalon, but before Yogg Zero was killed, because that boss was supposedly unkillable. And what happened is I joined, I passed I was passing my trial basically, like I was accepted. But we still hadn't killed the boss. And I was like, it was summer, and all Greeks go vacation during the summer.
Yes, they do. We used to stop raiding because our entire officer team would just disappear.
Of course. I mean, it's just too hot. I mean, you can't just play World of Warcraft all day. But so I had planned a week of vacation back then, and I was like, well, I mean, it doesn't look like we're killing this boss. I mean, it is what it is. I'll just go have my vacation, and all is good. And then suddenly, was it Stars or
Stars? It was Stars. Yeah. I'm trying to get an interview with them.
Yeah, Stars decides to just kill the boss, and everyone is like, "What?" So then suddenly, people started realizing how it's being done, and I'm like, "Oh damn, okay." And then we tried to kill it, and we can't kill it, and then guess what? My vacation time has arrived. So I'm like, I was hoping we would have killed it before, so I didn't even tell them. I mean, keep in mind, I was like 17 back then, right?
And you were required as well, because a hunter is a big component of killing.
Exactly. Yeah. You needed 4 hunters to kill that boss. And I was like, Davey, I have to go tomorrow for a week. And he's like, eh? And then...
Excuse me?
and then right that day, he kicked me from the guild. He was like, you're out.
Oh!
Seriously.
Bummer.
And I was like, oh my God. And I went to I go to my vacation, which was not the greatest, when you think, okay, I just got kicked. And at the same time, I'm like, listen, I know this is bad, but if you don't find another hunter, I know you need 4 hunters. When I'm back, please consider me, right? Like, and I kept asking my Greek mate Razi, who was in the guild as well.
Great guy. Love him.
Yeah, I was like, man, I was calling him every day or every second day. I was like, did you find anyone? Like, how's it going? He's like, no hunter, man. Like, it's what it is. We're just wiping here. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I dipped in the water. Yeah, I was like, chilling.
Oh, you're so happy. You're so happy. Oh, you've not killed it? Awesome. You're just wiping? Nice. Yeah. That's great news.
And then I come back from a vacation. It was Sunday. I come back. I get invited back into the guild. And I think it was like less than 5 hours later, we killed the boss. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah,
And I was so
I made the
happy.
difference.
Yeah. Well,
I am the carry here.
They had practiced everything. Literally, the only thing was they just didn't have the fourth hunter to do the distracting shot. And so I come back from a week of vacation, killed the boss. I'm super happy. I'm like taking screenshots. I'm jumping around. Everyone else is on Ventrilo back then. Like, well, okay, I guess World 7th or what was it? Everyone's depressed. I'm like, what are you talking about? I came from the World 1000 guild to this.
Yeah,
thing.
for me it was the dream.
Yeah.
Well, you actually put me in a weird spot once. Is that we were doing Ulduar 10 man, and I had not been in for Alone in the Darkness, and hadn't practiced it because I wasn't part of the main comp for it. And then we're doing we're just doing Ulduar 10, and this has only just reminded me because you brought it up. But we're chilling and we're killing everything on hard mode like we do, and then we get to towards Yogg, and you pipe up. We should do Alone in the Darkness, and I'm like, I haven't learned it yet. It's like, oh, it's so easy. You're a warlock, right? It's really, really easy. And I was like, and then I think it was Just Wait. Goes, what's the point? We don't get anything out of it. It's like, yeah, it's something to do, isn't it? You know, and you were just like so casual because you farmed it or whatever. You're like, yeah, we'll just kill it. It'll be fine. We get in there, and immediately I'm so stressed that I pulled my mouse out of my keyboard, out of my PC. Like, I dragged it to do a spin, you know, because we had to spin around. Castrate Soul to spin. So I like Castrate Soul, and I spin my mouse real fast to make sure I don't lose sanity. Pull out my mouse, stand there and die. And I think you went, what's up with this warlock? Because we hadn't played together. Because we've been in like the main roster. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I don't want to do all of the Darkness anyway, you asshole. And I came back and I was like, I pulled my mouse out. And I think you or somebody else just went, okay, sure. Like, no one believed it for a goddamn second.
Yeah, what an excuse. I mean,
yeah, okay. Okay, bitch. Sure you did. Moving on. Get back into it. But it's crazy to think now, like we've done all this stuff over the years, how different the guild was then. Because I left I didn't get kicked, but I got scammed hardcore by Sko and Protec, I think it was. At the time, I think they were impressing some e-girls. And I might be wrong on this, but I had just transferred my warrior, because I was classically a tank. So I joined as a warlock, but the idea was that if I was... I can't remember the name of the tank. Was it Oranos?
Oranos, the druid. Yes.
The druid, yeah. The druid might not want to tank going forward.
That was the craziest thing, yeah. It's the one person that he never spoke, yeah. And it was like this big mystery around him. Like, he's just doing his thing, yeah. He's a good player, but he just never spoke. It's like... But yeah, go on.
But I got told, like... He's thinking of maybe stopping. You know, he doesn't want to do it anymore. So you might be tanking with Scott. So I was like, oh, awesome, because I love to tank. I didn't want to DPS. I was like, I'm a tank. I've been a tank for the last like 4-6 years or whatever. So I transferred my warrior over. Immediately, Sko whispered me that day. I hadn't even set up my UI or anything, and it was TOC. And he goes, "Hey, can you do TOC 10 man?" Now, for context to everyone else here, a TOC 10 man in Method is about 40 minutes max, right? That's it. It's about 40 minutes for a TOC 10 man. So I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. 4 hours later, Roger, it turns out the only members of Method in this raid are me, I think Protec, and Scott. And seemingly it's a load of fans or people. I mean, obviously we didn't have streaming or anything. So these were like server fans. And I think some of them were girls or something like that. Or somebody was, something along those lines. And it was the scammest raid I'd ever been in. And 2 hours in, we're still on the Beasts of Northrend.
Oh, and my God.
Yeah, and I was like, unfortunately, I whispered to Scott, I was like, dude, I have to leave soon. My wife finishes work and I'm picking her up. And Scott said, you fucking leave this raid, I'm kicking you. I'm like, bro, we've been here 4 hours. Okay, like, I expected this to be 40 minutes max, like a normal clear. Like, I just have to go in the next couple of pulls. And he relented, but I know that was a black mark against my name. But I was like, dude, you said you made it out like it was a Method run. You know what I mean?
That's when you get debated, yeah? Before even
I was debated so hard, dude. I got in there, I'm like, who are these people? I was like the last to join. They must have been looking for a tank. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here?
Okay.
Oh, because nowadays we just say scuff ? And now we know what's happening. This is before the days of is this scuff or not?
Yeah, back then you didn't know. Like, no one was streaming. You were just like, oh, an invite. Okay, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, the guild, as a still relatively fresh face, the guild master asks you, do you want to come for a run? You say, yeah. And I got into that raid. I was like, "Oh my god, what is this?" And then the fight started. Nothing was dying. Everybody else was dying. I'm like, "Oh shit, I have been played like a goddamn fiddle at this point." Yeah, I think that was the last week I was in the guild. I was like, it left such a sour taste in my mouth. I'm like, I'm out. Not only am I scammed raid, but I'm getting called a dick for leaving the raid. After 4 hours. Like, fuck this.
Yeah, maybe it was one of those. Do you remember that interview from that reality show of someone saying like, "Oh yeah, I was in Method," and like, with the girl. Maybe he was in that raid as well, because I think he was roughly around that time. I don't even remember him, but yeah.
No, I don't know who that guy was, but it was one of those things where I was like, nothing in this guild is working out for me, like, at all. I'm running into arguments with the officers.
Yeah.
The GM is pissing me off. You know what I mean? I'm like, not for me.
I would have probably never made it back if Yogg Zero didn't require 4 hunters, honestly. Yeah, like they were done with me. The only reason why I stayed in was because Davey was, I guess, too. It would have been really BM for him to kick me right after the kill. Yeah. So then I just stuck around, and then a couple months later, I was like, been quite a while. Am I getting promoted? Or and he's like, yeah.
So you did the same as me. Like, nobody's talking to me. What's happening?
Yeah, like, because he didn't want to promote me, but it had been like 3 months or something, and I was like, are we making a decision here? What's going on? And then he promoted me, and then after the next year, he actually left for Insidia. So there you go.
Yeah, so let's move on to ICC a little bit then, because you came on officer relatively quickly, I think.
I became right after ICC, actually. I became in Cataclysm, first year.
I mean, that's fast, if you consider the nature of the guild, but it should be clear, we're telling these horrible stories that happened to us in Method. The roster is nothing like that now at all. I mean, I had people trying to sell me gear, which was just like, I cannot believe this guild exists. Like, they were rolling on gear in Ulduar, and I was like, and then they would whisper you going, you can have this for 500 gold or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening, like, in this guild? For real. I think there's only you, Just Wait. Is that about it from then?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it, because Just Wait was around at the time. Also, super nice guy, by the way. Just want to put that out there. So, ICC, interesting time, because this is... I literally just had an interview with somebody who was in Nihilum and Insidia. This is when Insidia got banned for an ex-Method player, actually, Nahiko.
Oh, yeah. With the bombs, right?
With the bombs, the Saronite bombs, yeah. Interesting. He believes somebody knew what was going on there. I'm not sure, because I remember Nahiko when he was in Method, and he was super nice. Always used Saronite bombs since as long as I knew him. But there's a compelling case from Close that was, you'd notice if you're pressing a spell and the platform rebuilds, because
like,
he would probably notice.
It was crazy, because obviously it was a weird bug, but it was just such a, like, it broke the entire fight, right? Like, if you have that room, you literally don't have to do any damage to the Valkyries. Like, it's just crazy good. So but from what I heard, I think that I did, like, it's been so much time, but did they do this in heroic mode, or was it normal mode? Because I heard that they did it in normal mode.
Yeah, it was the normal mode. Yeah, that was his point, is they went back, because what Blizzard did is banned their characters, but not their accounts. So they went in and just killed it on alts, because the fight was super easy. And that was part of their argument. Super easy for a world first guild. So that was part of their defense, was like, why would we ever need to cheat this fight? On normal mode, because I think the staggering was you got normal week 1 and then heroic week 2. Which was where the world first race was at the time. Method did not get banned, though. But we are kind of, at the same time here, the rise of Paragon to their dominance for a while. So what was the kind of feeling in the guild there?
Right. So it was a dark times back then for the guild, because here's the thing. A little bit before that, so in TOC, right, Trial of Crusader, it was a big flop for us, because what happened was yes, you could kill the last boss, but the way that progression was tracked back then for guilds was not who killed the last boss first. It was who killed the last boss with the tribute to insanity or whatever it was called,
Correct.
right? Right. And then I was unfortunately fully benched for that last boss because hunters were not that great. And we tried to, or the other people tried to get that thing, that tribute to insanity every week, and there was always one wipe. It was not 0 deaths, it was 0 wipes, I think, right? That you had to do.
Yeah, I could tell you a little fun story. I know I keep interjecting, but on the first week TOC Heroic came out, the first thing Bethel did was make 3 10-man runs. Mm-hmm. And at my group, which was... everybody else had wiped at some point, but my group had made it to a new Barak without wiping. And so all the officers joined the vent channel we were in and were like, guys, no pressure. It's really important you kill this in one go. And we were like, wait a minute, what? And they were like, no, for real, this is a big fucking deal that you kill this in one go and you get tribute to insanity because that's going to be the world first. That's all that stuff. Of course, we had no idea how how New Barak worked in tribute. And heroic mode, considerably harder, and we wiped in the first 20 seconds. But and that was really stressful. But as you're saying, it wasn't a case of just killing the boss. You wanted to get tribute.
Exactly. So and then the guild failed to do that over and over every week, and I wasn't really part of it because the death was like I think every time on Anu Barak, and there was only one hunter, Davey, back then. I think to kill the little orbs on the sky, but generally hunter damage was pretty bad. And what happened was not only did we not get world first on that, we didn't even get realm first on that. We actually lost the realm first to Enraged Revolution. It was another guild.
A guild from my old server. I know them well.
Yeah, exactly. and they got the realm first achievement, and that was like it, basically. And what happened back then is a lot of the officers and like a lot of the members basically decided to leave and go to Insidia. So that happened, including Davey and I think Prodek and all of those people. They just left. So
which was some of your core. Those are your big players, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the core players left. So then we had the remaining players trying to do ICC that tier right after, and it was a bit of a struggle, of course, because we had a bunch of new trials and whatnot. And actually, that's when Kuznam first joined the guild. On his paladin, Rusnam. But and basically I think we got 12th or 13th. So it was a really bad ranking for us on that tier. But it was more about building up the team. We tried. It was the limited attempts as well, so you couldn't really go too hardcore, and it just was a bit of a weird one for us. But clearly we weren't really, right? Yeah. And the the funny part is that we actually, if you remember the guild Envy, right?
Yes, I do. I had some friends in Envy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we got world 12th, and they got world 13th by 1 minute. Because I remember that by literally 1 minute. So and I remember because I pressed a speed pot or a haste pot when the boss is at 10%, right? And you just DPS him down, just pump him down. And I was like, this is how you get world, this is how you beat Envy. And just pop the consumables. But,
I'm min-maxing the free win. I like that. I'm actually just looking now as we're talking at you actually don't have a video of the Lich King 25 for Method.
Well, we don't have a public video.
Yeah, not a public video, but the 10-man is there.
Someone in this call has a video, actually. About from that kill.
I'm just wondering what the roster was, because Apco's still there, who came from my guild. He joined with me. Mm-hmm. Good friend of mine. Was an editor for my YouTube channel for a while. Some great names there, like Flare, who actually came and joined our team to do 10-man Lich King hard mode. He came and healed for us.
Flare, I remember him very, very well, actually.
Yeah.
He was a really nice guy. The one thing that I still remember to this day, when there was a wipe, he would Hearthstone out to save the consumables. I don't know why. Like, that just stuck with me. Like, it was crazy. And every time
that is crazy.
I need a summon.
But
yeah, I can actually tell you the exact setup. Actually, if
Well, I'm just no. I mean, it's more a case of who joined.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to who this is, because the next tier, which would have been Cataclysm, you're back to world first.
Yeah.
You're back. I mean, that's the interesting part of the story is you go through. Insidia obviously breaks up. I'm not sure if anybody came back from Insidia, but there's this moment where you're world 13th, which in terms of method terms is not great. You're disappointed with that performance. And then within the next tier, you're back at world first again, and actually making videos which made method at the time much more. I'm gone by then. We'll probably get to my interview with you because you interviewed me at Lake Kata.
True.
What's that turnaround? How does that happen? How do you go from world 13th, which is a long way from first, by the way? There's a big mountain to climb there. Yet we get back to Cataclysm and we're seeing method. Which world first did you claim there? Because Paragon was still on top.
We got a few.
Is back.
Yeah, we got a couple of like non-end boss world first. So we got it was Kid Myron. We got that world first by again 1 minute to Paragon, which was pretty crazy. I remember because they also oh man, actually I just remember this. Paragon used to talk to their community through IRC. IRC. Do you remember that?
I do. I loved IRC.
Yeah, and I was never really a big fan, but I remember that we get the kill. Everyone is super hyped because we got literally that was our first world first back then. And then a minute later, people say, "Oh, Paragon killed it as well just now," and I'm like, "Jesus Christ, the world first is tough, dude."
And this is a real race, though, right? This is real.
Yeah. So we got that. We got Maloriak as well. Sorry, not Maloriak. We got what was the first worm boss? Was it called?
Oh, the one where you had to pin it to the ground. And that was actually the video I think turned heads because you included the comms, and you guys were very, very relaxed. But it had you kiting, I think, for like 25 minutes. Yeah,
that was actually that was the first time when I think, I mean, it's been so long, but I think I came up with that strat of kiting those ads, and I took it upon myself. I felt really proud like that. I was like, we destroyed this boss. And
then we saw it happen from the outside. I think we were watching the videos because it was considered relatively unkillable. In 10-man, it was unkillable, which is where I was at the time, as was Sparkugs. You'll know that come back to the story. But we were on the same server. So looking at what Method was doing, and we're watching this boss get pulled, everything looks normal, and then suddenly we cut to you, and you're running to Omnitron. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on here? And in fact, Cataclysm is full of these weird and wonderful strategies, because we've got Paragon hanging half the raid out on Alakia, not even joining in for the first half, all the druids, and we've got you just...
Anyone remember? Anyone remembers Atramedes? Question mark.
We don't speak of Atramedes.
No one is going to speak about that. I mean, again, someone might have a video
out. No, they do. Somebody released a public video of the strategy for that. I did not get banned,
but
which is mental.
I do have the world first kill video from that boss.
Yeah.
It was
not
never
even in the boss room, I assume.
I mean, barely, peeking in.
I want to be fair to all the guilds that did this, by the way. So what Roger's bringing up is Atramedes was actually completely broken. And no matter how much guilds petitioned Blizzard, they just left it that way. Yeah. And you couldn't kill it. You couldn't do anything. It didn't work. It was like randomly melting the shields and things like that. So guilds ended up finding a way that you could stand outside of the boss room where Atramedes couldn't leave and just DPSing it.
Basically negating most of the... it was such a weird fight. I think after that is when they started putting actually barriers at the gates. Yeah, like they were like, you can't exit this room.
Yeah, which is fair, but they did let guilds do that because our guild refused. We were aware of it. And we were like, well, no, we're going to get banned. And suddenly, but then weeks went by and guilds were farming it that way. And we're like, what's happening? Just leave it.
And I think because Paragon did this exact same thing, and they said, I mean, we didn't say anything really about releasing a kill video or anything, but I think Paragon said something like, yeah, it was a really lucky pull, and we forgot to record. We forgot to record.
Cowards! Cowards.
hard to replicate this strategy instead of something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal how many people were like, "Yeah, it's dead." Moving on. But the problem was, I'm never gonna, even after my own banning, I'm never gonna celebrate exploiting. But it couldn't be killed, and they just left it that way for weeks. It was bizarre. They just left it there. So, what are you gonna do?
It was interesting strategies back then. I'll tell you that. But yeah, like to bring it back, like I think the way how we managed to go, from World 13 back to second, basically a couple of World Firsts, but was because there was a long time, of course, after the Lich King, there was a big of a gap, so we could reorganize a bit, get new members, build up the officer team. I think we had a couple new officers, myself included, or I was called the veteran, like a different rank. And just in general, like we could put a lot of time, right? Like it was a new expansion, lot of time. Like that tier lasted for 2 months, I think. I had to botch my semester, basically, like those exams of that semester. I mean, they were gone. But it was like 2 month progression. And then I guess it showed like we really wanted to get back there, right? Like the whole team wanted to just get back into the world first position. So
I think you came second, right? You got the world's. It's hard to say because the reason it was so long, like Roger's saying, is there was 3 different raid instances at once.
True.
So you had Nefarian, the Blackwing Descent, and then we had Cho'Gall over in the Twilight thing, and we had Alakia, and all of those last bosses. Oh, we had Sinestra actually.
Exactly. So Sinestra was.
So there's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, we got world second on all those end bosses. Cho'Gall we actually got world third because I think for the Horde got world first. But we were basically trailing Paragon pretty much.
They were good.
Yeah.
Can't take anything away from those guys. So but I mean, how's the we're getting closer and closer to the boss we want to talk about, and the Paragon rivalry between you guys, was it something you guys talked about a lot, or is it just a case of we can be better, we can do it, we just need to keep pushing?
I mean, there were 3 dreaded words that, still sometimes when I sleep, I can hear them in my nightmares. And it is, Paragon just killed it. Or 4. Yeah. Oh. And it's just like, again? Come on, man.
Come on.
Because a lot of times we would maybe, be neck and neck or pass ahead a little bit. And then we would just end up losing a lot of these times. And then back then you didn't even know how they did it, right? Like there was no streaming, there was nothing. You just said, "Oh, they killed it. Okay, great. How the hell did they do that?"
So were you stuck on? That's an interesting point then, because obviously we talked earlier. They used some very bizarre strategies, like half the raid off the platform at Lich King, not Lich King, Alakia, a massive amount of druids at Nefarian. When you were obviously tackling these fights at the same time. Mm-hmm. Were you in a position of like, this fight isn't even possible? Like, what's happening here? And then you find out they killed it, and you're like, what? How?
Yeah,
is that the mentality?
With Alakir, definitely was quite impossible. Like phase 1 was so overtuned that, I mean, if you didn't think of that strategy, it was pretty impossible. Like we just kept wiping phase 1, so we kind of gave up on that boss, honestly. Nefarian, we actually made some solid progression. It was more like you didn't need. I think we didn't have that many druids. In our raid when we killed it world second, but it just made it a lot easier. Like you could have mediocre to bad gear as a druid, and you would still do same or more damage than other, fully geared classes, just because of the nature of that fight where you put the massive dot and it got multiplied by crazy numbers. So Nefarian not so much. No, it was basically Alakir, the one that we got fully stuck. Like we didn't even really try it. I think everyone left it for the last, being the last boss, and then we didn't really know how to beat it. Honestly, I don't even remember. I just remember we lost, and then we were like, okay. I don't remember if we used the same strat actually for our kill, or if
the fight got fixed after that.
Yeah, they fixed
I think
it.
They fixed the fight.
Yeah, I think they fixed it, and then it was doable. But the other bosses, it was more or less like just better play from them, right? It was like 1 or 2 days behind them, I think, for most of it. Yeah,
I'm just looking at the roster as well. So I'm looking at Nefarian World Second. Once again, the roster is dramatically different. Like, there's such a history with Method of rebuilding. Something they're actually going through again right now. And you can see going through these videos, it's like there's you, there's Sko. I don't even think Just Wait's in this at all. And that's it.
I can't remember if he was there.
No, he's not. I'm looking at it now. Unless he's on an alt that doesn't carry his name. But looking at it here, it's like, this is an entirely different guild. And it's strange. I guess I will ask you the personal question. How strange has it been for you to almost see these entire guild rebuilds? I mean, it has been a decade, so it's not like it happens every week or whatever. But you've gone through some quite dramatic changes guild-wise and still tried to maintain that level of competitiveness. That can't be easy.
Yeah, you mean like over the years, basically, right? Like
over the years. I mean, you've basically rebuilt the guild 3 times because obviously we have the Serenity situation that came up later on, and then and you have stuck through this from this. You went from a World 1000 guild to Method to like 4 different versions of Method through all of it. I mean, these have been some tough times.
Yeah, it's been quite the ride. I'm not gonna lie. I think, there were like this, the Serenity thing, or when a lot of people left back in City at times, right after TOC. So those times were definitely transitional phases. But I think overall, there was just a large turnover of players. Like there was this core that was kind of sticking through, but a lot of players just went and came to the guild just naturally, and it was just a lot of that. Because back then, especially, a lot of people, they didn't see the appeal, right? Like, what did you really make out of this, right? Like, there was no incentive. You couldn't make a living out of this back then at all. So it was, for a lot of people, well, we achieved what we wanted to achieve. We got some world firsts, some world seconds. Now I'm going to move on with my life. So I think it's definitely weird looking back at kill videos from so many years ago, and you're like, I don't even remember some of these players, right? Back then, they were chatting on a daily basis, and now I don't even remember how their voice sounded. But
do you think there was an atmosphere? Do you think it was because of the end boss world seconds? Because you were very consistent for this period of time with second place, right? I'm not being mean. That was the case. It was like back to back world seconds over and over again. Do you think that was a contribution of like, I'm putting in so much of this effort, but not quite getting over the finish line, that maybe caused a lot of that turnover, or just general a lot of players joining and not realizing exactly what's involved?
Yeah, there was definitely, it was such a different time. I mean, the thing is, back then you didn't really need to put this constant time, right? Like, all you needed was players that are adaptable and could actually play for 2 weeks at least straight, right? And they could push through that. And a lot of times we would go to like really late hours, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I think at some point, we got the latest kill was at around 8 a.m. Sour Fear. So it was definitely different times. And it was just who can reliably keep doing this, right? People had to have their normal jobs back then if they were not a student. And you can't really do this. So yeah, definitely a lot of the reason was because of the requirements back then. So and because people just moved on with their lives. I think getting world second was not really a big thing because it just further increased our thirst to get that world first, right? Like, if you haven't gotten a world first of the last boss, you really want it, and you're so close every time.
It's exactly what Max said to me recently, actually. I had a conversation with Max of Limit, and he said the same thing. After the Queen of Shara, is that they were so close. I mean, they got the kill just a few hours after you guys, and they were like, the drive that gave them to go for N'Zoth as hard as they did. It comes from that. So there are those people who look at the second. I mean, that's what you're working through, right? You get second and you think, well, what's the point? Like, I didn't get, if it's not first, you're last kind of attitude. Or you have those guys who are like, we're second, we can do this. We just need that little bit more.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And once you had it once, I think there's no... definitely, it depends, right, on the boss as well. If it's a cool boss and it's really tight, like, let's say Blackhand was an insane fight. But that, the first world first that I got, I still remember them so vividly, even if they weren't end bosses, right? Like I remember Chimaeron. It's like I remember the feeling you have from that. So it's I don't know, like it's such a big motivation to keep pushing until you get that world first. Once you've had it, it's still great feeling, but it's not the same, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people would get the world first and they would be like, they felt like they've achieved what they wanted to do and they're done, right?
I want to throw that at you, actually, Roger. I can't remember which fight it is, but there's a video I checked recently. Oh, it's Method versus the Butcher world first, because I was considering the Butcher for this, because you guys or Method was the only guild to do that fight legitimately, I believe.
True.
They were the only guild in the world, because Paragon, I don't think Paragon did. I think they did the pull it off to the side strategy, but I could be wrong on that.
I mean, they didn't even kill it before they killed the last boss of the raid.
No, yeah. So it was you watching that video though. At the end, I don't know how tired or fatigued you were, but as everyone's screaming, you're just going, "Just kill the boss!" Like you've had enough with life. You want it to be over, and you're just saying, "Please, just kill the boss. Let's just move on with our lives."
When you have so many low percent wipes and it's just so stressful. Oh my god, that boss was so stressful because you had to min-max the DPS so much that there was no room for healing that much. And you had to soak those ghouls that were coming at you. And I was so scared every time. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to die. And then I'm like, please just kill this. I want to go on a different boss. Like, this is too much.
Because it's a fun boss, because it is extremely intense, but for all the wrong reasons. The Butcher was definitely what I considered for this, because that is an impressive feat, is to defeat that boss legitimately. Later on, they did kind of rework the boss so it could be done properly, but I'm pretty sure Method is the only guild that killed it legitimately the first time, before nerfs and things came into play. Well, we're moving forward in time here. We're going to skip over the Dragon Soul, because fuck the Dragon Soul. Although, I do have to ask you, so, out of nowhere, Kin Raiders claim Spine of Deathwing and then immediately kill Madness of Deathwing. On Heroic, because Madness was considerably easier than Spire of Deathwing. Yet the controversy at the time, and I wonder what your gauge was at the time, was that Kin Raiders did this simply because they had access to more gems for gear. And that was it. They transferred, I think, some gems from different characters, or their server had a ton of gems, and gems made such a massive DPS difference that it allowed them to overcome Spine of Deathwing. Never saw really Kin Raiders again. Their name just pop up every now and again. But in terms of a world first, just came out of nowhere. How did that feel? Because we've had this dominant streak of Paragon, you guys second, and then suddenly Kin Raiders come out of nowhere and claim Madness of Spine and Madness within 3 days of each other.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but back then there was also a reason why we weren't even close to getting that world first. That's because both us, I mean, there was many guilds, but namely us and Paragon, we were both the whole guild. Well, not the whole guild, but the majority of our guilds were banned for 8 days, actually. So,
of course, the LFR scam. I forgot the LFR scam.
Scam, clever use of mechanics. I mean, you can say whatever it is.
For LFR gear. Oh my god.
It was interesting, yeah, because them
set bonuses were fucking sad. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. Like the sad thing is that in general, it wasn't even like that huge of a increase in our strength. It was mainly to finish off some tier bonus sets, especially for tanks, because back then the tank, basically, for anyone who doesn't even know what tier sets are, if you are a BFA player, back then you got that tier set and a personal cooldown. So I think, what is that called of the druids? Enrage the regeneration, or what is it?
Yeah, it like affected the whole raid or something. It was crazy.
It was like a raid-wide buff for, I think it was 30 seconds, extra 40% healing taken, or something crazy like that.
It's ridiculous,
It's ridiculous, absolutely. And every tank had the same. Like, you pop a personal defensive cooldown. Oh yeah, the whole raid gets it. So that was the main reason why we went for that. And we got banned. Same with Paragon. I'm pretty sure some other guilds got it as well.
There was a lot of guilds. Yeah, it was a really strange time.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, oh, look, they are doing it, so we are doing it as well. And then suddenly...
Works with Atramedes, right?
True. I mean, and then you suddenly have the memes like, all guilds banned, Blood Legion world first. You remember that?
And they did, though. Blood Legion did take the storm until Warmaster Blackon, in fact. That's where they got stuck, where Vodka came into it. But it was the second week. So you basically missed 1 week of gearing.
Pretty much. Okay, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, but, that's what this conversation is all about. So they actually banned us purposely for 8 days, so we would miss a whole week, right? Because they banned us on Tuesday before the Heroic was... before Mythic, or, Heroic, now Mythic, was released. Yeah. What they didn't anticipate is that... Oh, they banned us on Monday. Yeah. What they didn't anticipate is that our ban actually ended a few hours before the reset. So what we did is we woke up at like 5 a.m. And because our ban, ended at 6 a.m. and then we blasted through to get as much gear as we can before the reset.
Big brain plays.
Yeah, but sorry, one.
That's okay.
I'm getting a message. Muted. Okay. So but yeah, like back to what you were saying. Yes, back then Epic Gems were a big thing. They were a limited resource, so you couldn't just craft them. You had to gather a resource and buy it off a vendor, and then you could sell it. But here's the problem. Back then, we were on the server Sylvanas, and we wanted to get out because the queue times were actually crazy, and it really annoyed us for progression. So there was a free transfer, and we went to Xavius EU. What a great server.
That's not true. Okay. Maybe this was true for you. Okay, I joined during Dragon Soul. So you did my interview, where I think we talked about the interview stuff for about 10 minutes, and then we just shot the shit for like an hour. And you were like, you need to get a Lego staff. I was like, I don't care, Roger. Like, it doesn't matter. We don't need to get it. It's like, no, we're gonna get it. I think it was because it was Dragon Souls, the end of the expansion. So I was like, it really doesn't matter. I don't want to go through it. And you were like, oh, okay. But I joined, and I was. This is where Sparkugs returned. I was talking to him before I moved, and I was like, because I was a Horde character, so I was like, what do you think we should go? And he was like, you need to go Worgen. I'm like, I don't want to be a Worgen. And he's like, you need to go Worgen. So I transferred my character, made my Worgen Warlock, and I joined the guild. I get access to the forum, and immediately at the top of it is, we are moving to Horde.
Yes.
And I had just spent, I don't know, 50 quid transferring my character. And I was like, you guys for fucking real? You guys for real?
I was going to get to that. So what happened is, like, a tier before that, or something, like a couple of tiers before that, we were like, we don't want to be in Sylvanas. We don't want, like, 2-hour queues during progression. So we moved to Xavius because there was a free transfer back then, like they did on Classic. Yeah. So you could transfer for free, and we're like, yeah, let's just go to a low population server. What a great idea. So then we went to Xavius. Guess what? The server is completely dead. And we had no gems to buy. And that really tilted us. Not just that, you couldn't even level professions. Like, the auction house was just complete dead. Because back then, also, it was separated from Alliance and Horde, right?
Yep.
I think now it's not the case anymore, right? So
I'm not sure. I thought it's because they still have that auction house in Booty Bay, right? Isn't that for the mixing?
I think that's dead. I think now, like, it's just one for the whole server, but I might be wrong.
I don't check these kind of things, unfortunately.
Yeah, but anyways, so then literally after that tier was done, we were like, okay, we can't have this anymore. We can't be on a dead server. And we're like, okay, guys, we're going to move on a high population server. Now's the time if we're going to decide if we're going Horde. And we had a vote on the forums, and Horde won. Not by a lot, actually. It was like a close vote, but it was like a couple of people more wanted to go Horde. And we're like, okay, what are the good Horde servers where it's like literally 90+% Horde, and like, who cares about their lives? And then it was between, I think, Twisting Nether, Kazakh, and Taramil. And then we decided to go to Twisting Nether.
That's right.
So there you go. But yeah.
There you go for you. I was like, it cost me like 100 and something quid to join Method. I was like, this fucking sucks. This is not fun at all. But it did work out, actually. It did work out because Mr. Pandaria rolls around. Method will first. Will of the Emperor.
Yeah, that was actually a really crazy kill for us because we didn't even realize we're killing it. And if you check the kill video, everyone's just silent. I was actually raid leading back then, and I was really annoyed because we had a plan of how many ads we're killing, and I'm like, guys, kill these ads. But apparently people didn't realize that we're doing that, so they were trying to CC them, and then it was a complete mess. And I was like, okay, whatever, just random CC them then, and then just kill the boss. And no one really believed that we're gonna kill the boss because it was like chaos, and the boss was still 10%. And then the boss kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and I'm like, guys, keep going. And I was focusing because I didn't want to die, and I was like one of the last few people alive. And suddenly people are going, oh, 2%, 1%, 0.5%, and then boom, we got the kill. It was pretty crazy because that was actually the first world first of Method and me and all of those people of an end boss. That was
that's what I mean. So I have two questions for you then. What was that like? Because now it's happened. You've been in the guild now for this is your second expansion with the guild, and you finally got there. So and the second question I'd like you to go to is, how did you become the raid leader from this hunter that joined to actually being the raid leader of the new world first method?
Yeah. So I mean, back then, generally speaking, I don't prefer to be the raid leader. I prefer to think of strategies in general. But usually what happened is we, generally speaking, was between me and Kuznam, the raid leading. Actually, back in the day, it was Sko technically, but Kuznam quit basically after Dragon Soul. So then, well, I guess I'm the raid leader. There you go.
By default.
Yeah. So then. Or what was it actually? I'm trying to remember. I honestly can't remember. But yeah, Kuznam was not there for that raid at all.
He's not in the kill. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. He's not there.
Yeah, he joined afterwards. He was definitely there for Southfear. Not sure if he was. Oh yeah, he was there for the next raid. I don't know. Honestly, it might have been just him not being available, and I just took it upon myself. I mean, it was only 6 bosses, so it wasn't really that long of a raid, and. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool because that boss was all about a little bit of strategy, a little bit of CCing, and using some hunters to soak up some orbs. So pretty solid boss. I wouldn't say it was the hardest or whatever, but it was, as I said, for me, the feeling back then, I remember, was because I was one of the last few people alive. You can see the video, mobs are flying all around, it's complete chaos. It's like watching a wipe, literally. Yeah. And I was just fully focused on doing my perfect GCDs because there was no reason to call out anything anymore, right? It's just kill or be killed. So I'm just hard focusing. People are starting yelling kill it or something, and I'm like, oh my god! The adrenaline, that feeling of getting a world first when it's such a tight kill, you get that. I mean, I don't know how to express it, but it's like a tingling sensation, right? All the adrenaline, and then suddenly the body is reacting after you get the kill, and you're like, Jesus, what has happened?
So noticeably different because you had, like you said earlier, you had world first before, but they've been mid-tier bosses. This is an end boss.
Oh yeah, that was a big one, huge one, because that again, that was the first world first end boss. Yeah. So it was quite a big one for us. I think it wasn't, how can I say it because it was a 3 raid tier. It didn't solidify us yet as the top guild. And the whole memes about, Paragon is gone, so obviously now you get world first.
Yeah, I mean, we should touch on that because it was a meme to us on the outside, but it was also kind of legitimate. It's a lot of us did feel that way. Is that so? Paragon decided that they could no longer, I think, support a Finnish only roster. Which was a big part of Paragon. They were really struggling to find people who were capable of speaking in Finnish and understanding Finnish. And they decided to go 10-man for Mr. Pandaria, in which case then Method rises to the top. And obviously, unquestionably, you did have to carry that stigma for a while. It was this is great. But if Paragon was still raiding, then they would have defeated you. And I'm sure there was some part of your mind that was maybe, you know what I mean? And had that... there must be some element that thought that way.
I mean, I definitely, obviously, but I also didn't know what to do, right? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, you can't change it. Like, there's nothing
yeah,
you can do. But it's your world first will. I think it wasn't until probably. I'm looking through it. Probably Lei Shen. That actually you shook off those shackles, and people were like, no, Method's the tits. I mean, Paragon's gonna have fanboys till the day they die. That's fine. But
throughout MOB, there was always like, oh, you didn't get world first. Paragon got world first in 10 man. And I'm like, guys, this is not the same boss. Like, people couldn't understand like the difference. I remember Lei Sen specifically, one of the coolest, most amazing bosses ever, and we had to like do really calculated stuff because of the amount of sparks that were flying in, and a lot of things just get so much more complicated with the larger roster size. And then I would switch over and see Paragon's skill, and I'm like, okay, yeah, the sparks are hopping around. Now everything is fine, just dot here, dot there, and it's fine. I mean, we couldn't really tell, right? Like, you can't really tell unless you play it what's difficult and what's not. Some bosses were harder in 10 man, some bosses were harder in 25 man. I think Garros, for example, was a lot harder in 10 man. They had to solo heal it, actually. But usually the 10-man versions were easier just because you also can have the 10 best players and not 25 players. There's
a lot. It's a never-ending discussion that still takes place on the forums to this day. And I'm glad it doesn't really sully your memory too much. It's like, well, there's nothing we could do about that, right? Those guys aren't playing, so who knows? What I do want to bring us to then is this kind of is the rise of Method from this point onwards for the next, 4 or 5 years. The only sort of brief interrupt is that Emperor Shexia in Heart of Fear was killed by Blood Legion, but you did take that, considered the hardest boss that tier, which was Shah of Fear, which is an immense...
For the record, Shexia, if you check the kill video, I'm not in there. I'm benched, actually. So I can wipe my hands clean from there. Yeah.
Raid leader benched?
No, Kuzum was raid leading. He was back for that, but our handlers were objectively really, really bad. So... It is what it is. Yeah.
Just like, I forget the tier where we both said hunters were bad and they ended up being hardcore at the end. But I still carry that burden today. But I do want to bring us to, actually, when we talked about the main point in this interview, which was the most impressive bosses killed, it actually isn't Garrosh, it isn't Lei Shen, it isn't Sharafia. For you, it was actually Siegecrafter Blackfuse.
True.
You brought that up several times. So I didn't put this on the list, despite the fact that it is an incredible fight. I thought Blast Furnace was better from my perspective, and obviously it's my list, so shut up. But I would love to hear your thoughts on why Siegecrafter Blackfuse is up there for you, and everything leading up to that
Absolutely.
point. You dominated from Thok all the way to Garrosh. You took every single kill. Take us through it, pal.
Sure. So actually, in Siege of Orgrimmar, I was the raid leader again. I mean, it is what it is. I actually, Kusdom at that point had quit the game, and so I raid led that raid, and it was quite an interesting one. I mean, arguably, people say it wasn't the hardest raid of all time, but I remember specifically Thok. I have a quick little funny story about that. We actually, if you remember Thok, you had to I don't remember exactly what it was, but you had to do something to trigger the boss to get out of a phase. You had to do something with your HPs, and that would trigger the boss to get to the next phase and stop AoEing the whole raid. But instead, what we came up with a strategy was, well, what if instead of 4 healers, what if we bring 8 healers, and then we just out-heal the damage?
I know what you're going to say, and it was hilarious, by the way.
And we literally just stacked the raid was full of healers. People were respecting to their off specs and whatnot, and because there was a cap, right? Like the AoE came every 5 seconds, it couldn't come any faster. So, and even though the stacks kept ramping up, and we got so close to killing the boss with that method, it looks so stupid because we were just standing there hitting the boss, nothing happening, just out healing, rotating all the raid cities in the world. And what happened was, and I got this story from an inside the Blizzard when I went to BlizzCon, was literally someone saw us doing that. They rushed in the offices, got to the patch to fix it, where it after 100 stacks it just insta kills everyone. And literally we're running with the USB stick with the patch to fix the boss and plug it in, let's go.
And they just despawned it on you because I think Sparko released a video of it. Literally, they just hotfix. Yeah, in fact, I found the video. You guys just stood there, just nuking the boss down, and then they just like insta killed you, right?
It was so funny, yeah. But yeah, we killed it normally, and then Siegecrafter. The reason why I really like that boss is because, I mean, it really played into what I like in World of Warcraft, and it's coming up with a strategy to kill a boss, but it's not being super obvious, which is really hard to do as a designer. And I actually did talk with the person who designed that boss as well. Doesn't work.
Is it Morgan?
No. Damn, I can't remember the nickname, but I think he doesn't work in Blizzard anymore, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the reason why Siegecrafter I thought was so cool is because you could do it in so many ways. So I remember we had a spreadsheet of all the possibilities, and depending on what you killed on the conveyor belt, then it changed what you had to deal with in terms of mechanics in the main state. So, and you couldn't just pick like, oh, this is the easiest. No, you had to actually play one into the other, right? Like it had to make sense how you transition from one phase to the other. It wasn't just like just pick the hardest weapon.
Yeah, you can't just do the same one over and over again.
Yeah. So it was a lot of trial and error, and then in general it almost felt like a dance, right? Like a elaborate dance where a lot of movement and it all made sense. And I don't know, I just really like that boss overall. Once you get the kill at the end, you really feel like it's the end, right? Like again, you have to kill it or you die, and like we had a history of almost wiping and getting the kills back then. And I still remember, I feel like that was one of the most enjoyable bosses I've ever killed, not an end boss, just because of how cool it was to come up with a strategy with the rest of the team and executing it and changing the movement. It was just really, really high up there for the time being. Like, we weren't used to bosses like that.
No, I mean, this is something I look for. It's one of the reasons I enjoy Kale Fast so much as well. There is not a moment of this fight that's not interesting. And you have some people doing like 7 or 8 different tasks throughout this fight. And that level of engagement as a player is something that I live for. As, you know, we talk about engagement a lot, but there are so many fights that are like, well, you know, the tanks have fun stuff to do here, but the DPS kind of just hit a boss. Like Agramar. You know, people go, Agramar's such a cool boss. You got ads, you got all this. It's like, well, actually, if you're a melee DPS, you don't do anything in that fight. You just AFK and just hit the boss. And it's really boring. But you look at Siegecrafter, not only is it spectacularly designed from a visual perspective, like that fight is so cool to look at, but you've got people who are doing the conveyor belt. They're jumping down, they're doing other things. You've got all these people who are dealing with saw blades. You've got people dealing with the kiting of the bombs in order to manage the crawler mines. You've got people who are specifically designed to CC them. And it's like every little wheel of the raid needs to be working simultaneously in harmony in order to get through that fight.
Exactly, that's it. Like I didn't even know what the people that were doing the conveyor belt were actually doing, right? Like I like when the raid splits up as well, so you had the team going there. I think sadly there was a sort of an exploit that we didn't use, but apparently a lot of guilds did use it, which allowed you to go on the conveyor belt every single time, which you normally can't. You had to rotate people, but you could like jump on that little what do you call it, like a pipe hole. You could jump on there and like saddle step or whatever, and then you could do it.
That's it. That's what it was. I think you could feral lunge it, and I think you could shadow step to a player or something like that, and therefore get back up.
Yeah,
and people. That led to people just jumping down, going straight back up again.
Yeah, and we didn't do that. And actually, I remember that Midwinter had a strategy. I don't know if they used what I just said, but I think in general, people considered Midwinter strategy a lot better, a lot simpler than what we did. Even though we got gold first.
That's true. Turkey finds that really funny because Turkey was Turkey is the raid leader and GM of Midwinter. And he brought up Siegecrafters that they came up with something different to you guys that everybody used.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what was different to the way you guys did it.
I mean, it was quite different, right? Like, as I said, once you change the path early on, like, it's just it spirals, right? Like, it You can't go back. Let's say it's a path. You need to find it. There's a couple of paths, and we just chose a different one. The funny thing is, a lot of the guildies were saying, "Hey, let's go and do that strategy. It's so much easier." And we tried it, and it was just not working because everyone was used to the other strategy. So we ended up always killing it with our strategy, which is, I think, is also a cool thing. You don't have to copy paste a strategy exactly how it's the easiest way, which is a lot of what happens nowadays. But anyways,
even for trials, that's really hard. It's something I try and instill in a lot of people who are coming into raiding, is they don't appreciate that maybe the guys around you who make it look so easy, they've probably wiped this 250 times, and their hands almost play for them at this point. It's no good coming in at a boss you've never killed in a guild that's progressed it and finished it and expect to play as well as those guys. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's especially if you're used to... I remember when we merged with rapid eye movement, and when the Serenity thing happened, and they were doing... And we had to basically adjust to their strategy on Archimond and Manaroth, and especially Archimond, and I was like, God, I cannot wait to go back to our strategy, man. I can't play like this. It's so bad. I couldn't get used to it. And then I was just waiting for that tier to be over because I couldn't handle the farm on that boss. I was like, this is awful. Like, I'm just not used to this. But yeah.
That is true. Okay, let's go to the Serenity thing then. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but essentially it was. I'm after your perspective on how you felt at the time when it was all happening, because you and Just Wait, I think, decided not to go. I don't know if you were invited or whatever, but obviously this is in this timeline. This is another time that you have to rebuild. So whether you could touch briefly on how did the announcement come through, because it happened rather quickly. From my memory, it happened really quickly, and then. Almost in an insane twist, and after speaking with Scripe, I did an interview with Scripe in Germany. It was out of seemingly pure luck.
Yeah,
that Scott and Scripe meet up, have a conversation, say Rapid Eye Movement could join. A method comes back to number one, so we're in.
It wasn't even Scripe. It was actually, I think, Scott met Pennell, an officer of Rapid Eye Movement, at an airport by accident. Right, like it was just.
The Scripe says it was him. Because that is the story I've had. Yeah, it was Scripe who saw... I think the story I have is that Scripe saw a tweet from Sko saying he was delayed in the airport where Scripe was nearby. So Scripe messaged him saying, hey, shall we meet up?
Maybe. I don't remember. But I remember it was an airport, yeah.
Yeah. So take us through that.
Yeah, so it was a weird one because technically speaking, we actually demolished the competition back then, which was Paragon, on Archimond. And... like we were king of the hills, or the king of the hill, I guess.
Yeah.
Like undisputed pretty much at that point because we just got world first in Blackhand, and if you want, we can go back to the Blast Furnace at some point. But
yeah, we'll get there. But such a method strategy, by the way, on Archimond, which is watching those videos with the laser beams in particular. Paragons was so elegant and clean and crisp. Method strategy, just make a weak aura, fuck it. And we'll be fine.
It was so funny. I remember, Autumn made that weak aura, and I remember we had it for Heroic at the start. Normal back then. Oh, wait, no, it was... it was Heroic and Mythic, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I forget when it changed.
Yeah, I honestly also forget. I
Same,
think, yeah. And I was like, hey, that's a cool weak aura. But we used it mainly for Heroic mode. And then when we got to Mythic, I remember, Potom did all the work, but I remember I was like, man, can you just, make that a little bit better? Can you improve this? Can you improve that? I was like giving him ideas as well, and he was just in the background making it better and better while we were trying strategies like, oh, let's do the egg, let's do the circle, let's do the two lines, let's do like every single geometrical shape you can think of. And at the end, I was like, well, let's just YOLO it, man. Like, because I think it kind of naturally happened. Once the weak aura was good enough, we were like, it was kind of like a wipe. And then I was like, hey, I can just look at this weak aura and I can just sidestep it. Like, let's just YOLO it and see how it goes. And then, then once we started using it, we made more improvements. And boom. But anyways,
it works because we're not dying, so we're past this. That's it. Yeah, it's not killing us now. Move on.
I could talk for Archimond for another hour probably. It's quite an interesting boss as well. Actually, probably one of the hardest bosses, but I wouldn't say it was more just the boss being purely hard rather than, I mean, if you take away the weak aura, the strategy was kind of straightforward. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those fights that's cool. I mean, for me, for looking at it for this type of list, it's a case of it's a cool fight and stuff. Is it overly impressive? I mean, it's a fun first kill for sure. I don't think it ranks up there with some of the other ones we talked about. Like, I prefer Siegecrafter over Archimond. Like, personally, as a raider, I prefer that fight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's get to it then. The whole reason we decided to meet up, is, of course, the Blast Furnace. Which is, again, a fight that is probably on nobody's radar. Nobody cares about. Why are you talking about it? Blackrock Foundry, it's not even the last boss. It's like boss number 6 or something.
No, I mean, it was different wings, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was the end boss of that wing. It was always the last one you did, typically. Before, maybe Iron Maiden's was, actually. But you generally did this one last. Certainly once you guys had kind of figured out the strategy. But this fight, in my mind, is watching the video of this. When you guys... I remember waiting to see the video because we were working on it at the time. Like, how is it even possible they managed to do this? And then the video came out. And even in the video, and this is what really drew me to talking about this with you, is you ask, what's the energy? I think it's Zabok or somebody or somebody replies, and you go, because it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. No. So for some context, actually, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if someone wants to check, but to give some perspective, that boss, Blast Furnace, by the time that we got the world first on Blackhand, which was the end boss, there were only 3 guilds that had killed Blast Furnace.
Oh, it's ludicrously hard fight. It never gets the respect it deserves.
This has never happened before, where it's literally just 3 guilds on the last boss. Like, it's never happened. I think, at least.
Not in my memory.
Yeah. So I was. So we reached this boss. We kill all the other bosses. We had a little bit of a hiccup with Iron Maidens. Actually, we tried a strat that was a little bit clever use of game feigned death mechanics, but and that got hotfixed, so we had to change the whole strat. So we were quite behind, and this was the boss that all of the guilds were stuck on. They had cleared all the others, and they were stuck on this boss. So we go here, we're a little bit behind. We're like, damn, okay, how do we do this? And the interesting thing about this was a lot of guilds tried to. The general idea is, how fast can you do phase 1 and phase 2, right?
Yeah. Because
the faster you do it, the more time you have in phase 3 to actually kill the boss. If you are not fast, then you're just going to wipe. And I can explain the mechanic behind it as well, but the main thing was a lot of guilds were focusing in phase 2 and how to save up some time there. And
this is the crazy irony. The trick is to go slower.
The trick was to focus on phase 1, actually, to do that faster, and therefore save up a lot of energy on the boss, and then do phase 2 in a normal, easy, not easy, but like a lot more
flexible, I would say.
Yeah, controlled. Yeah. Actually, there was no tight DPS check, really. It was just play good, but you could save a lot of energy in the phase 1. So for some context, by the way, the way the energy works on that boss is the furnace explodes every X amount of seconds, and it does raid-wide AoE. And now the higher the energy, the faster that explosion happens. So I think at the start it might be every 20, 30 seconds. And then as the energy goes up, it goes down, 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 and it reaches about 10 seconds, maybe 9 or so. And then once it reaches 100 energy, it drops to 5 seconds. So literally doubles the AoE damage that you take. And that's pretty much the soft and raise. You can't out-heal that without cooldowns. So the trick, again, is to go into phase 3, have the boss have around 80% energy or so that you have that 20 extra energy to DPS him down enough. So, and then at the end, you pop Bloodlust, you start popping everything, healing potions, and just survive the 5-second AoE that comes no matter what. So yeah, that was the tricky part was, and it wasn't my idea even, I must say. It was, I think it was Alaria that was like, guys, let's just blast more in phase 1. Let's just kill the operators. So the way that you got a lot of energy in phase 1 was there was these massive groundlings called the operators, and they just rang a bell or something, like they pulled some levers and they gave energy to the boss. And once you hit 50% HP on them, they stopped doing it. So it was all about DPSing them down to 50% before they pulled that lever one too many times. And what we did was we actually used Bloodlust as well in phase 1 to DPS them down, so that we get a bit less energy. Like one less tick was actually massive. That's the thing.
But there's another trick to this as well, right? Is that while you're blasting that operator super hard, because I was a rogue at this time, so being outlaw was actually a little dangerous here, because there's the other side of this. You had to keep those engineers up until they casted their bomb buff, which was RNG, which was a little bit frustrating because you could have one up for ages and he just wouldn't do it. And those bombs helped you pass phase 1 faster. And you could scam that with cloaks and dispersions to zerg down bombs on top of yourself and just blow it up.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
So you didn't want to kill the engineers, because when they died, they dropped 3 bombs, I think, on the ground or something, which you could use to... The phase 1 ends once you explode 2 sides of the furnace. And to do that, you just blow up the bombs next to it. But the engineers, you want to keep them alive because they kept throwing bombs and more bombs to a player. And then he went next to that little flap and then exploded and DPS'd it. Now, the thing you could do was also mind control an engineer and use that ability as well. I'm pretty sure, at least. I mean, I wasn't a priest, so it wasn't my job. But yeah, they would mind control them and throw the bombs to specific people, one of them being me, that were pretty much always standing next to that place and just exploding. And then whoever randomly got it from the engineers that were not mind controlled, they just ran there and also exploded. But it was all about keeping the engineers up, getting the mind controllers, spamming those bombs, but also DPSing the operators as fast as possible to 50%. Like, that was the key. Like, once we started popping all of our cooldowns, like Bloodlust even in phase 1, and everything was just to make those operators go to 50% health before they pulled the levers and gave more energy to the boss. And I think we got 25 energy or something in phase 1, which was normally you would get 40. So we saved 15 energy right there.
And I think you also introduced the kiting strategy. I'm actually looking at the video now, where there were elements of the fight, because the DPS was actually ridiculously tight. So you had these... This is, again, we're kind of going back to a similar style of fight of Siegecraft of Black Fuses. All the way throughout this fight, everybody's got very different jobs that they need to be aware of. And they're all involved and engaged. Because phase 2 in itself is a really kind of interesting phase with so many adds, but you don't want to AoE particularly, except for certain times. You need to focus your damage. But I think you may have done this where you actually ended up with a tank saying, we don't need to DPS these. We can't afford the damage on them. These champions, I think they were. And you just ended up with a tank running around with 10 champions on him. And just try to take them out of the fight while we focus on what we need to do.
Yeah, so exactly. Like phase 2, you first gathered up and just AoE'd any leftover adds from phase 1. And they also have a little mini boss, which didn't really make too much sense. They just put in there. So you just AoE'd a lot at the very start of phase 2. But after that, it was more about you passively cleaved the warriors, right? What were they called? With the shields and stuff.
Yeah, and they were dropping shields on the floor.
They were dropping shields. The tanks needed to move them away to drop the shields outside and move them back in. But you generally just passive AoE them. What you had to focus on was the elementals, the slag elementals, which we had a weak aura actually for that back then. It was a pretty advanced weak aura. So whoever got targeted, because they fixated on a person, he had to move next to the elementalist. Then a mind-controlled warrior and the guards had to break those elementals. Otherwise, they wouldn't die. They would just heal up. Yep. And then once that elemental died close to the elementalist, then you could DPS the elementalist for 20 seconds. And now, okay, this sounds very complicated. It makes a lot of sense.
It is. Yeah. It is complicated. This is one of the reasons you're saying only 3 guilds got past this fight by the time you guys got to Blackhand, is because there was it had been a long time since we'd had a fight like this, where everybody would needed to do something.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people bitched at the time. It's like, oh, you need Shadow Priests. And I think this is where Blizzard came out and said, for Mythic, yeah, we expect you to be able to field certain comps. They just were quite open about it. It's like, yeah, we do expect you to, but if you're a Mythic raiding, we expect you to be able to bring 2 priests to the raid.
Yeah.
And we're going to design fights that way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of pressure on the priests doing the mind control, because if they mess it up, like, it's a wipe. Like, there's nothing you can do. Also, the people that got fixated by those elementals, like, you had to kick the elemental as well for it to walk to melee attack, basically, to get next to the elemental list. But if someone was, like, fixated by an ad, didn't realize, oh, it died outside, it's a wipe again. Like, it was so tight. Like, everything had to go perfect. Now, the thing I was talking about earlier about the elementalists and how guilds generally tried to save up time in Phase 2 is when an elemental died next to an elementalist, you had 20 seconds to kill it. But a lot of guilds, what they try to do, which of course makes sense, especially if you have more gear, is kill it in one go, in the 20 seconds. And once you killed it, it's done. We didn't do that. As I said, we focused on using all our DPS stuff in Phase 1. And then in Phase 2, what we did is have a normal 2-phase elementalists every time. So we killed 2 elementals, one after the other, after 20 seconds. And then we just 2-phased every elementalist, which was fine, because you didn't actually... The boss gained energy quite a lot slower in Phase 2 compared to Phase 1. So, and generally it was a lot more controlled that way. We could AoE. You had to kill the fire callers as well, which is another ad in this fight, which randomly put debuffs on people, and you had to spread out or you would blow up the raid.
And they healed as well, I think. Didn't they heal elementalists or something? They did something really frustrating.
Could be, and I think you might have to purge them, I think, that perhaps.
That was what was so crazy about this is it looks like, if you watch the video as a casual observer, and this is exactly why I chose this boss, it looks like, oh, there's a load of stuff you need to AoE. And everything Roger is explaining is actually, no, that was all a trick. You needed during these big AoEs, you had to focus single target on a specific enemy in a 20-second window. You had to ignore that stuff. And then you had to also these ads aren't here just to die. They were all doing stuff. Like, the elementals are here to be kited into the elementalists. You have to manage that. The fire callers are not only AoEing, but they're also healing. The champions are dropping shields so that you can't kill the things you need to kill. They're all working in synergy. Need to be managed by different teams.
I mean, normally this would be an fine phase, right? Like, you just kill stuff and eventually you get out. The problem was you had to kill them quick. Otherwise, you just wipe. That's the thing. Like, you had the time pressure. Everything had to go perfect. You couldn't miss an elemental, then it's over. Then you have, no time in Phase 3. So, and there's one more thing I want to say, but maybe I should keep it for when we go to Phase 3. Generally, though, this Phase 2, was a lot of control. It might look quite simple, but it was super tight. Like, if you fail the DPS on the elemental lists as well, if he gets the immunity back up at 1%, that's another wipe. If the tank doesn't move out to the guards and they drop a shield, which the shield reduced damage taken to all of the mobs, on top of the elementalist, that's another wipe. If the mind control doesn't, the mind controlled guard doesn't break the elemental to make the elementalist become vulnerable, Jesus, even when I'm saying it is crazy, then that's also a wipe. So there's so much like personal responsibility in this fight, and it could just go horribly wrong so quickly.
Which is great, though, because when it goes right, there's an adrenaline rush through this fight from Phase 1 onwards, and you ride that all the way to the end. There's when you're progressing it, you don't get it on farm because you start blasting everything and it's no problem. But doing it originally, you can feel like, okay, Elementalist 1 went perfect. Let's move on. And you start to feel that momentum gathering as the timing is starting to work out perfectly. And it's one of those things that there's not many fights that do that, because we have a lot of intermissions and stuff now. And I'm sure many people were like, hey, you should talk about Kill Jaden. I don't really want to talk about Kill Jaden. One, he was bugged for ages, and it was all little segments of the fight. It wasn't a continuous ride. You kept having these little breaks, which often got really tiresome and boring. The fights like Blast Furnace, though, don't have that.
If you think about it, it's actually such a unique fight because it technically has a enrage timer, which is 100 energy, But it's not exactly an enraged timer, first of all, because you can still survive it for a while. It's just unhealable damage at some point. Like, you can only survive like 30 seconds, maybe 60, and then you're just going to wipe. But the cool thing about it is that the enraged timer was up to you to decide, because if you did the fight properly, it saved up time. It was not direct timer. It was more phase 1. Are you going to handle the mechanics properly? That's going to save you energy. So it's pretty unique. Making your own enraged timer, basically.
Yeah, when you're deciding, like you just said, with exactly like Siegecrafter, and I think we're both on the same page with the type of fights we really, really like. Like I say, Kel'Thas, you're deciding where the people are going, who's managing the legendaries, who's going to trade them, and you're deciding the flow of the fight. Mm-hmm. And it's like Blizzard presents you this puzzle and says, there's actually like several ways of doing this. It's up to you. Yeah. If you can figure out the one that suits you, that's what works best. But like you said with Siegecrafter, is there is a different strategy out there for it. There's a different one for Archimon, but this is what works for us. So how did you feel as you were starting? Was there a break point before we have a look at phase 3? Was there a break point where you did phase 1, you tried it, and you were like, this is the way? Because at some point, and a lot of people won't know this if they've never had to do a boss that hasn't been killed yet, you have to commit to the strategy. And it's something that we definitely saw with the World First and Ashara, is 2 very different strategies from you and Limit. And it was a case of, but the guilds have had to commit to that now. And we talked about it on as a caster. It's like, at which point do you say, maybe we want to go a different way? Or is this or do we commit to this and this is what we're going with until we either win or lose? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, on this boss specifically, again, it's been many years, but I do remember specifically reaching phase 3, which is, again, it's easy to reach phase 3 in this fight. I think people need to realize that. It's not like phase 1 was unbeatable or phase 2. It was just how quickly can you get there. So we would reach phase 3 and we would just wipe. And we're like, how can we survive longer? How can we do this? How can we do that? And then at some point, again, like, people just realize, like, hey, we just need to lower energy. Like, this is it. And then we tried a little bit to do it in phase 2 by, again, killing the elementalists in one go instead of 2. And then we tried that for a little bit. And then, I think it was Aladia. I don't remember. Someone was like, could have been Potom. I remember it wasn't me. So, not getting a credit.
Which is the important thing. You don't want to take the credit. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me for this one, for sure. And they were like, what if we just get phase 1 done a lot faster? And then we tried it once, and then we saw the difference in energy, and we were like, holy shit! Like, this is why would we bother? Why would we bother with phase 2 doing this tight DPS check of like killing the elementalist in one go, which requires different classes and it's messy and it can go wrong so easily, when we can just focus in phase 1 and save up so much energy? And like, as soon as we focused on that for like a couple of tries, we're like, that's it. This is literally the way we do it. And I remember as well, another thing that we did some weird stuff with Bloodlust. I think we had like our healers bloodlusting early on so that they would have Bloodlust a bit earlier or something in the last phase. Like, I don't remember what we did. We definitely tried a lot of stuff with the Bloodlust because you needed that in phase 1 to do what I just said. And then once we saw the difference in energy from phase 1, we were like, okay, we have to try this. Go with this. And then once we actually did phase 1 like that, and then phase 2, and we reached phase 3, and we saw, oh my god, the boss has so much less energy. This is actually super doable with this energy. Then, we hard committed to it. Now, there is one thing, though, that I must bring up. And I really don't think a lot of people realize this when watching this video. So the slag elementals that we used in phase 2 to break the shields of the elementalists, the slag elementals, they fixate on people, and they do a cast that is an AoE around. It hits someone, and then it does AoE damage around him. Not too much, but enough to wipe the whole raid if you are all stacked on top of each other for healing, which is what you need to do in phase 3. And the problem with these slag elementals, they never die. So you can't kill them. They just regenerate health, and they are still alive. So the way you had to handle that was clever use of game mechanics, should I say? I don't know. So the way we did it is, okay, and you can't do this forever, but it's a pretty cool trick we figured out, and it helped a lot. If you stood just right not a yard too far, not a yard too close, then the Slag Elemental would fully channel the cast, and then it would cancel it at the end because you were
I'm
too far.
seeing it now. You're right. Yeah, I'm seeing it in the video now.
Yeah, exactly. So they would
So it was
finish
a
the
range
cast.
thing?
If you stood too close, you would just take the damage. If you stood too far, it would start running towards you because you were too far. So you had to find like that exact sweet spot.
Oh, so yeah.
Where
So it's like a player almost, where it'll continue to cast, but once it realizes you're out of range, it won't go off.
Yeah, exactly. Like you didn't even have to move. Once you found that exact sweet spot, I think we call it as well, like the sweet spot, you could stand AFK there, and that Slag Elemental would not do anything, basically, until you moved again. So that was pretty crucial because that allowed people to like take a lot less damage, be able to stack on top of each other a lot more so that healing is better. And that was also a cool trick. I mean, maybe not fully intended, I must say, but
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
Let's not pretend. But definitely not.
Yeah.
But there's also the element that you can't, like you said, you can't do that for. There's a lot of personal and micro adjustment there because you're also dropping pools behind you. So
Exactly.
You can't like.
You have
although
to move
you've
at some
reached the
point.
space of the right energy, you still need to kite the boss. Now, luckily, the boss doesn't have enough HP where this is really a problem if people are alive. Mm-hmm. But you are going to run out of space as well.
Yeah.
This is another factor in Phase 3.
Yeah, we had to keep moving. Only at the very start we could stand still and DPS the boss a lot because there's a lot of room in the back, and it was pretty chill, Start of the phase is okay. But yeah, afterwards you have to keep moving, drop the pulls behind you, and again, find the new sweet spots, right? Because as soon as you move, the Slag Elementals followed you, so you have to find a new sweet spot again and again. But generally, other than that, there's not that much going on in the last phase. Is find the sweet spot. Don't mess up with a pool. Don't do a defile, basically. Don't drop it on top of everyone and then you wipe. And just then it's up to the healers. And just max DPS, of course. Pop the
I always
bloodlust,
respect that
pop
Custom
the
kept
raid
the
skis, and
polymorph.
yeah.
I can't believe he ran off and kept that fire caller polymorphed all the way until the kill.
True, yeah. So what happened there was right before we finished phase 2, we were a little bit too slow, like a couple of seconds. And then we got the new fire callers. And I actually am trying to finish off the one fire caller that spawns on the right side where we start. Or left, I guess, depending on where you see the fight. But the opposite side, we didn't want to deal with him. So I think Kusdom just blinks across, ships that target, and it's just karma reseeping it until the end of the fight. Like, we never killed him. I mean, it was,
no, you don't. It's still there at the end. Because you hear him midway through going like, right, I'm going to go and sheep. Heals on me. Because he's like running out of all the AoE healing. It's like going on this Rambo mission to cast the sheep.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. So everybody else could just focus on your game, right? And that's what you look for. And you can imagine the pressure of this, right? You're saying, no one's got there. This is the world first. And all you want, probably as the raid leaders, is just you want your guys to just focus on what they need to do. Look after your slag elementals, kill the boss. Mm-hmm. And so that's where he's going to run off and go and deal with this stupid thing. Whereas most girls will probably just be like, just bring it in and we'll cleave it down. It's like, no, I'm just going to go and sheep it, and then we'll carry on. Everybody
that
just
was really
on their
good.
Job.
Yeah, because the fire caller is the one that puts those debuffs that everyone has to spread out. So it would mess up a lot, even if he cast that once. Plus, I mean, it's extra mob you don't have to kill, so... I mean, I think it was a super exciting kill. Like, because once we figured out that it's doable with this strat, everyone got so pumped, and we kept pulling, and we were like super excited. Because up until that point, we were like, man, like, how are we gonna kill this boss? Like, we reached the last phase, and then we wipe. Like, there's nothing we can do. So then everyone was excited. We reached the last phase. We see the boss melting, and no one else is killing this boss anytime soon because it's insane how orchestrated this kill has to be. So you feel extra good about knowing, like, hey, and no one streamed as well. So unless there was a leaker on the guild, it was going to take some time for others to kill it.
That's what I was going to say, because it was always a gentleman's agreement that videos wouldn't be released until like the 5 kills or something like that. Yeah. Some sort of. I'm actually just checking because it was tier 17 when that happened. I'm wondering how long it was before the second guild actually got it. Because
I'm pretty sure it would have Paragon, right?
Yeah, it would have been Paragon. They got it February 15th. Paragon managed to get it February 15th. I'm wondering how far away, because that strategy you came up with, I think, was the one that everybody used.
Yeah, we got it February 15th as well.
Same day.
Same day, but I think they got it way later in the day. Now, keep in mind, though, that if you see our kills, we were stuck on Iron Maidens for 2 days because of what I said at the start, right? Like I said, we were trying something weird, and then it got fixed. So then we had to change our strat, kill the boss, and we're so behind. Like, we're at least a day behind. And it was pretty big to catch up. Like, we caught up massively on this one, basically.
It's kind of something that we probably won't ever see again, is the strategy being so dominant, because obviously now with the streaming situation, is once you'd made that change, somebody would have seen it and easily transferred that into current strategies. And it is like you're talking about, during a race, you had that period of acceleration because of greater strategy and greater planning that worked out for you there. Although the opposite happened for you on Iron Maidens, which allowed the race to catch back up. And I think we were all interested to see, Method got it. What? They were stuck on Iron Maidens. The Paragon have got it too. Yeah. Oh, God. And have that kind of situation.
I remember every time, like back then, every time when you don't know what the other guilds are doing, we're like, man, what an insane kill. No one is going to kill this for like at least 2 weeks. And then, Paragon killed it. Oh, okay.
Well, I want to leave you because we've been talking for nearly 2 hours about this one boss. But I've asked everybody this who we've interviewed so far, who've always been in, everybody we've spoken to has been in this world first scenario, is any bosses where you thought legitimately this is unkillable, and how you dealt with that moment. Because everybody who answers me tells me a different story of standing in front of a boss, personally thinking to yourself, even if you would never share it with the raid team, even if you would never voice that concern even in the officer chat or whatever, is, I don't think this can die. But you can't say that because that's just going to kill the raid team. They're just going to be like, well, what the fuck are we doing here? I imagine you've encountered that a couple of times.
Definitely. The thing is, I don't remember exactly, like, on this boss, I remember I was feeling this. But it's a general feeling that we had over the years, especially before streaming, obviously. Because you were like, well, no one is killing this boss. It's just impossible. Like, we just can't kill it. Like, we're just hitting a brick wall. Definitely a bummer thinking that way. I think a boss where we felt that was Archimond, because the Doomfire in Phase 1, like, we literally couldn't get out of Doomfire in Phase 1. It's just doing so much damage. I think they nerfed it to like almost half the damage after a couple of days. I mean, same with Kill Jaden. Like, it's quite demotivating. Aren't those like two brothers or something, right? Maybe there's something there.
That's a lore question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm out. No, but yeah, it's definitely bad when you go into that mentality, because a lot of times maybe we weren't thinking like this boss is unkillable. It was more like, no one is killing this, right? Like, it's not like the boss is impossible, but it's so hard that no one is going to kill it. And then as soon as another guild killed it, we got a lot better, and then we killed it as well. So that happened a few times. And then at the end, it was just it became a meme, right? Like, you're like, yeah, it's unkillable. What are you talking about, man? Like, it definitely became.
That's the thing, right? There's a difference between, actually, this boss is unkillable. Like, you definitely progressed Kill Jaden when it wasn't possible to do. But I looked more to fights, and we talked about this briefly before we started talking, or the other day when I asked you about this, is things like Fallen Avatar.
Yeah.
Which Fallen Avatar isn't. It's like, I don't like Kill Jaden. I don't think it's a fun fight, and you eventually killed it. Although people, this is the thing, like in the community, they go, it's like 500 pulls or whatever. But a lot of that was bullshit pulls. Because the fight wasn't even killable, right? But Fallen Avatar does kind of fall into that strategy, because, I mean, even when I was progressing Fallen Avatar, there was times they were hot fixing it while we were trying it. So you would just come back in and the boss had different health. The maiden suddenly had different health. And that's kind of, it's one of those things that is very demotivating, because it's like, do we have to relearn this fight again now? Why are they screwing with the boss? Like, what's going on?
I mean, that boss, all I can say, first of all, is that I was so tilted we had a really good pull, and I say, please don't stab me, because there was those daggers, right? And I was soaking the line, and I was standing as far back as possible, because, the good thing to do. I was like, please don't kill me here, please don't kill me. We're about to transition Phase 2, and then I see two blades just slicing me, both of them, and I slammed my desk so hard, my PC froze. And then
God.
we wiped, and then everyone was flaming me, and I'm like, I was just so killed. I almost broke my desk. But no, that boss I think was a really good boss in general.
It's so fun.
It's so good
when it's working right. It's so good.
Yeah. The thing that a lot of people probably don't know is that the reason why it was super hard was it was technically a bug. I don't know if you want to call it a bug or not. When you got into phase 2. The way the boss worked is it had perma AoE on people.
Yep.
But and then once it broke the floor, it was moving in the fell lava, whatever, and it was gaining stacks, which increased the AoE damage that it pulsated every 2 seconds. Now the problem was that I think the boss was designed to gain 2 stacks every time. But because in Mythic it broke a longer, like a bigger area, it sometimes got 2 stacks and sometimes got 3 stacks. And that difference was so massive because if you got, it was RNG, mostly 3 stacks, but sometimes 2 stacks. We tried hunting him with monks, we tried everything to speed that boss up so that he gets less stacks. It was not intentional, and eventually they hotfixed it. I don't remember if they hotfixed it while we were killing it. They did something, I think, to it. Maybe they nerfed the AoE in general or the buff. But it was quite frustrating because we didn't know how to outplay this, and it was unkillable. If the boss gets 3 stacks every time, it's just impossible. So it was a bit RNG, had to do with like the ticks, I guess, because the ticks were on the world timer or something. So if you got lucky, you got 2 stacks, you can kill the boss, or you continue and get lucky again. If you got 3 stacks, pretty much over, like unkillable. So that was the sad thing about it. Phase 1, phase 2, though, overall, I think we're pretty excellent. Like that's what I wanted to see from it could have been an end boss, honestly, by itself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely. This is one. I mean, it was a math fight as well.
Yeah,
which is something we see every now and again. I mean, you're talking about biggest tilt. I think Fallen Avatar is probably. Now I think about it, Tuma Sargeras has probably been the raid instance that caused me the most tilt in ever of World of Warcraft. One Maiden. If Maiden ever started going wrong, pull after pull, I definitely was a reason for my baldness. But Maiden, people just standing in the wrong lanes and not realizing it. Like, that happens crazily often. Certainly when you're getting pulls and pulls deep, is people are like, I'm in the lane, you're in the wrong lane. Like, we've done this like 50 times, dude. Can you please stand in the right lane? But one thing that was cool about this, and I don't know if you guys did it, Roger, is that you could skip to phase... Once you had phase 1 side, you could skip to phase 2 and practice it, which was awesome.
That was
such a good idea.
That was insanely good. I loved that so much. It's actually made progression feel so much better because you could just focus on practicing its phase. You didn't have to do this, boring phase 1, let's say, just to get to phase 2. That was such a good design, actually. I really liked that.
Exactly. It's why I hate Kill Jaden, because it was like 20 minutes, and you only wanted to practice the end, but you had to go through so much to get to the end.
Yeah, and it's fine if you can't kill it, obviously, but just practice that phase. So, No, but
you couldn't kill it. He'd have full health. There was no chance. But you could practice it.
In Tomb of Sargeras, it definitely became a meme in the guild that, okay, we pulled the boss, we wiped, and then we had to wait like 5 minutes for everyone to link their streamables, like a little video clips of what just happened. Yeah, like you're standing there. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. It's so many. You could feel like a whole hard drive just with those clips.
That is awesome.
But
I think we should leave it there. It's
been
long enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. It's currently 10 past 1 in the morning here, so I think it's 10 past 2 for you.
Yeah. It's really late.
It is late, so I will love you and leave you there. But thank you so much for your time, and I imagine we've probably got more to talk about in the future. So we'll see how people react to a chat like this.
Yeah, if people like it, we can do it again. Absolutely, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
I want a 1 hour talk on Archimond.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about Kil'jaeden. As much as I hate that fight, it's still very impressive. What happened there? But fuck Kil'jaeden. Be good, everybody. Thank you very much for your time again, Roger, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Have a nice day.